episode of Chordplay, and this is the Chords of Journey. And I've had a lot of requests for Neal Schon and the music of Journey, and I figured taking a look at the chords first would be a good first step. And for those of you that were wanting lead, or some soloing ideas, I did have a lesson in Guitar Player magazine a couple of years ago that was a tribute to Neal Schon. It was called Neal Shon's Melodic Journey. Neal is a complete, guitar legend. He worked with Santana. He joined Santana's band at 17 and famously turned down Eric Clapton to join Derek and the Dominoes because he joined Santana's band. So Neal's kind of one of the first or only people I'm aware of that told Eric Clapton no, or no thanks, or whatever. That's crazy, for a 17-year-old kid, or, 17-year-old early adult or whatever, joins Santana's band, gets a phone call or telegram or whatever from Clapton, and was like, nah, I'm good. I've got this Santana gig at 17. That's insane. But of course, he also worked with, eventually, founding member of Journey, worked with Bad English and Hardline. He worked with Jan Hammer and Sammy Hagar and Paul Rogers, and there's a whole bunch of people. So Neal's a legend and a monster guitarist, very melodic, very tasteful, lots of feel and expression when he plays. And I definitely follow him on Facebook, on social media, and he's always posting, clips from live concerts and parts of live solos, or just sitting around the house or in the studio, playing guitar. He's always posting stuff, which is great. The opening riff, that was the very famous Lights, and I've always loved this song. The guitar solo is brilliant, but the song itself is brilliant. It's just very melodic, very famous, and anytime it comes on the radio, I always turn it up, where it's like, okay, this is a great song. And the guitar part is outstanding, and it's very kind of Motown, R&B, and soul influence. There's a little dash of Hendrix, some of those slippery, double stops and hammer-on pull-offs, within chords, really cool. Break down that intro part, but he's kind of just, it's this syrupy kind of sliding, sound. So right there, it's a partial chord. You can kind of think of that as like a D over F sharp, technically. And then he's doing a hammer-on pull-off there between that D note and the E note on the, 7th and 9th fret on the G string. Down to a B minor 7, and he's also kind of adding that E note up there with his pinky, so it's like B minor 7, and then that's the sus4 right there, and then go back into that D over F sharp. It's a little different the second time, and then it moves down to an A major, and he's kind of playing with the sus4 there. B minor 7 again with the sus4, and then a C major, and he's going to add the sus4, and then just slide into this D over F sharp. Very famous guitar part, and it's beautiful, the way it just kind of drifts and shifts around. Really expressive, and I love, hearing parts like that, especially, the kind of Hendrix influence and that R&B kind of soul, feel. Next up, we have the very famous Wheel in the Sky, which is also from the album Infinity, which is the same album that Lights is from. And this is a very famous, guitar part, and he's hybrid picking. He's kind of using, a combination of pick and fingers. And you could also just finger pick, this guitar part. But you really can't get it to sound right with just the pick. Notes are kind of spaced far apart within these kind of partial chords, and you really can't strum it, to make it sound right. You have to pluck it like this. guitar part's really tricky because you're plucking and, you know, hybrid picking at the same time. So there's D minor and then like a partial E minor right there. And that's one of those situations where you, I mean, I guess you could dampen the strings and try to strum it real fast, but it's still not going to sound right. You have to pluck it. And then right there, that's, you know, F major to like a sus2. And then this is tricky. I found the best way to do it is just fret, you know, C major like this. And then you can remove that middle finger and then slide the pinky to grab the sus4. And then open up, you know, the 5th fret there so you can grab the sus2, that D note, and then hammer on with that pinky. So that's tricky. Something like this. And then do the D to E minor to F again. And then you're going to play C major right there. And you're kind of adding, you know, the D and that A note there on the top too. Just little passing tones. Go back to that D minor, back to F, back down to C, and then down to B flat. And then you've got this little, it's almost like Wanted Dead or Alive, but it's before Wanted Dead or Alive. Classic song, but I really dig that guitar part. It's challenging, but it sounds awesome. Next up we have the opening from the song Majestic, which is on the Evolution album, and I really like this little short, you know, instrumental. It's under 2 minutes, and I know there's a lot of other guitarists out there that I've heard, you know, talking about this song. And one person in particular is Paul Gilbert. You know, I watched a clinic of his, and he started talking about Key Marcello and John Norum, and then he randomly started talking about, you know, Neal Schon. And then he just starts playing Majestic, you know, and then he starts talking about how much he loves, you know, that guitar part in that song. But the opening, we're not going to look at the solo, unfortunately, but the opening, it's actually an acoustic guitar, and I'm just going to play it on electric. But it's a D13, and, you know, this is Chordplay, so we're focusing on the chords here. But it's a D13, and you can see it's really interesting because it's a mix of fretted and open strings, you know, kind of mixed together. And we've got the 5th fret on the A, the G, and the high E, and then the open D and the open B. And if you play through that, that's basically a D13 with no third. Sounds something like that. The guitar part itself, you've got that blur where you're playing, you know, a D unison in the beginning. Now, if you're a Foo Fighters fan or a Dave Grohl fan, you might recognize that chord because you can also hear that in the opening of times like these. You know that song, but that's the same chord. So I have a hunch, Grohl probably stole that from Journey, I'm guessing, because I really don't know where else I've seen that particular shape, you know, in rock. Next up we have the song Separate Ways, Worlds Apart, you know, which is from Frontiers, and it's a very famous, you know, Journey song. And there's something interesting happening, you know, after the intro part. Of course, the intro starts with synth, and there's this kind of heavy power chord, you know, action happening there with some kind of muted strums with harmonics mixed, which is kind of cool. And then there's a bunch of slash chords. You know, we've got all these, you know, E minor, a D over E, and a C over E. And then there's some other little secrets hiding. There's like an E minor 9 that kind of creeps in too. I think it's actually the keyboard, but you can play all this on guitar. You can even play the intro on guitar. there we've got, you know, that little hybrid picked keyboard part, which you can easily play that on guitar. And that's just loosely based around E minor. You know, you're just kind of playing this little melodic arpeggio. And then you got the E power chord, and he's kind of doing this scratchy harmonic thing in the middle of that, which is cool. And then it's basically E minor, and then D over E, to C over E. And I really like this E minor 9, even though it's not on guitar, but you can definitely play it on guitar. It's actually keyboard. But I love tackling, you know, keyboard and violin, sax, harmonica, you know, really any instrument. I love kind of adapting it to the guitar just to see what it sounds like. And it does have a different, you know, sound or texture or tone. But sometimes you can stumble onto things like that, and it's like, whoa, it sounds really cool on guitar. Next up, we have the song Mother Father, which is from the album Escape, and I think this is one of my favorite Journey songs. I love the chords and the guitar part. And then the song itself is just beautiful. You know, I could listen to that all day. But there's an interesting thing happening where it's almost like pieces of a puzzle, and the chords kind of interlock and connect on the fretboard. So it looks like this. It's really cool. You got E minor, and then you're basically playing A over C sharp, and then it's D major and a D sus4, and then it's G over B, and you've got C major, and then you're going to stretch all the way up to the sharp 11 there, that F sharp. And then right there, you're going to basically play, what, F sharp over A sharp. And then you've got B and B sus4, and then E over G sharp. Guitar part, and I love the progression, you know, the way it just kind of interlocks and slowly, you know, kind of creeps down the fretboard, you know, really cool. Last example here, this is another one of my favorite Journey songs, and it's kind of a lesser known, you know, hidden, you know, deep cut, but Line of Fire, which is from Departure, and you can also catch a really lively version of this on their live album Captured. I think I actually prefer the Captured, you know, live version. It's a little bit faster, there's a little bit more energy, and even with the kind of questionably fake, you know, crowd in the background, and all that stuff. It is a really good version of the song. But it's this bouncy, aggressive, kind of busy blues. And there's a little bit of chords, you know, kind of hiding in here, but it looks like this. Now, really cool. It's based around blues, you know, it's very energetic, and there's lots of movement and chords, you know, kind of hitting, you know, some power chords and stuff kind of stabbing in there. But the opening it's got that little chromatic walk up to E. Just D to D sharp power chords into a big explosive E. And I dig that too. It's just, kind of a boogie blues, riff, but very cool in E7. Move over to A and do the exact same thing. So we're kind of following just a blues progression there. Go back to E. Go into B. And then C to G. Waiting for that chromatic climb up, and then you do it all over again. This look at the Chords of Journey, and I'm definitely a big, Journey fan, big Neal Schon fan. And, I started playing guitar and was obsessed with Van Halen. And then I started listening to Journey. I had a good friend, my buddy Brant. We used to jam back in high school together all the time. But he was a drummer, and I was a guitarist. I was way into Van Halen, and he was really into Journey. So we kind of met halfway, and, he also liked Van Halen too. But he kind of turned me on to Journey, where I was like, okay. And then later I discovered that there was kind of a rivalry, between those two groups. And Journey and Van Halen didn't really get along. I think it was actually David Lee Roth, said a few things about Steve Perry and said a few things about their ballads. And they were kind of competing, for the same space, on the radio dial and the record bin and, on tour or whatever. They had a lot of the same fans. Journey fans also kind of listened to Van Halen, and then you had the diehard Journey fans that didn't like Van Halen, just like you had the diehard Van Halen fans that didn't like Journey. I think they kind of made peace, at least Neal and Eddie kind of made peace later. I don't know if David Lee Roth and Steve Perry ever even talked or fought or anything, but I think it was just kind of that competitive spirit, and they were, kind of fighting over the same territory, the charts, the radio dial, the concert tour, everything. And I think that kind of caused them to kind of, take sides against each other. But anyway, rock and roll history. It's a great thing. So leave some feedback and some comments. Please subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content material. Thank you.